So I'm now going to introduce the session and Ben. So grief is a common but often overlooked response to Cavernoma. Many in our community, and I know this from being on the helpline myself, share feelings of loss. And that could be due to changes in health, lifestyle, uncertainty about the future. It's a really natural and valid reaction when you've been given a diagnosis that could have life-altering experiences, but it's one that's often not talked about. Diagnosed in 1999, Ben has first-hand experience of both the physical and emotional effects of surgery and life with a brainstem cavernoma. Previously an audio engineer and a Christian minister for over 20 years, we're incredibly lucky to have Ben now volunteering for CAUK, and he also helps others through the grief recovery method. So Ben is going to talk to us about why grief is a valid response to life changes, how the grief recovery method can help, common myths around grief, and some practical steps as well. So Ben, without further ado, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for making time today. So Ben, over to you.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you so much for everything you do for us in the Cavernoma community, and thank you to CAUK for everything. And also thank you so much for letting me speak this evening. I'm so grateful to share just the things that I have learned. So I'll just share my screen. It's good. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining this evening. I'm really, really grateful. I'm grateful I can share this as a Cavernoma sufferer, someone that lives with Cavernoma myself. I found incredible comfort from this grief recovery method. So that's what I'm going to talk about this evening, the grief recovery method. But before I do that, I'll talk a little bit about me. Now, there is a reason that I'm sharing about me, and I'll tell you what that is later. So just the goals for tonight is going to be a bit about me, not too much, don't worry, and then a definition of grief for us to have with us. Then to identify the reasons that grief is misunderstood, identify ways that unresolved grief impacts us, and then identify our sources of our grief. And I have definitely made this Cavernoma heavy. I wanted to meet the needs of the Cavernoma community, so I really, really hope it helps you. I help people with all sorts of grief in life, but this is really close to my heart. Dealing with grief resulting from Cavernoma. So finally, at 6, identify ways to relieve some of the grief that we carry. And then finally, I'll finish with just a list of resources. You might want to take a photo of that last page or maybe access it later, but you'll get some info on there that will help you. So a bit about me. So far left of my screen is a handsome little chap with a wheelbarrow when he was, 3 years old. That's me over nearly 60 years ago. I wonder what the Cavernoma was doing now. I often do that when I look at that photo. And then the next photo is me and my family now. So there's my wife and my 2 children, Jonah and Ella. Ella wasn't born when I was diagnosed with Cavernoma, so she's grown up with her dad with Cavernoma. Jonah's 3 when I was diagnosed, so he has some memory of my recoveries and issues regarding Cavernoma. Then we go to my dad and my brother Nick. So they both died within the last 5 or so years. Unfortunately, Nick had a brainstem Cavernoma just like me. As you can see, he was bound in a wheelchair. He couldn't walk, so he was in bedbound mostly. And he died of symptoms relating to his Cavernoma just after the pandemic this year. So that's why my eldest brother, Nick. And then I put the bottom there, just a picture of my trike, which has helped me so much in the last 10 years. I wore a trike to help me get around. I used to cycle a lot and couldn't because of my balance now. So I got a trike, and it's an amazing resource and gets me around wherever I need to go. So just a little bit about me, a bit more about me and my Cavernoma journey. I'm 60 now. Don't tell anybody. In 1999, at the end of the year, I started to get symptoms, um, a facial palsy initially. And so I went to the hospital, and Nicola and I sat there as we were diagnosed with well, initially they said it was a tumor, brain tumor, but then they decided it was carcinoma, and that they could take it out in 2000. I had the operation to remove it, one of them. Um, Apparently, and without a scan, we found out that it had come back very soon after that operation. So in 2004, I had to have another operation in a different direction, and to remove the cavernoma again. This time I was aware that the last time it returned. So this time I had a scan very quickly after the operation and found that it had returned again. So the specialists said that they wouldn't take it out anymore because it kept coming back. They recommended Gavanite to me, though they couldn't assure me of any positive results. They said it might or might not work. So I thought, well, why not? So we did. We had Gamma Knife. Then after Gamma Knife, I had the last bleed I've had, which resulted in the with very poor balance. Couldn't walk initially, but my walking improved. My facial palsy became permanent. My eye effectively died, became very infected, and so I need to keep that going. And I was working up until then, and then in 2015 I had to give up full-time work as a minister. And so now I live with symptoms, obviously poor balance, very poor eyesight in one eye. I could see well from the other eye. Poor speed, especially when I'm tired. I'm sure you can relate. All of my symptoms are worse when I'm tired, and worse when I'm cold, in the cold in the winter. So I live in Scotland. It's probably not the best place to live, but that's what happens with me. So my current symptoms are quite difficult to live with. And I'll tell you this just in the context of thinking about a loss. The grief recovery method is something I discovered a few years ago. I trained as a counselor, and realized that actually there was nothing that was helping me in any model that would help me with people's grief. So I found this method with grief and recovery in this model. So I became grief recovery method specialist and learned how amazing this method is in helping people to recover from grief. I didn't think you could recover from grief and didn't really know enough about grief to know that. So I trained in it, learned a lot about myself, and learned a lot how it can help me in my current circumstances. So this is that the text for whoever I take to the grief recovery, so we read the grief recovery handbook together as we go through it. So that's that. So I want to define grief for you today. Um, Grief is the normal and natural emotional reaction to change or loss of any kind. Um, and also, the grief is the response to a changing or end of any familiar pattern of behavior. So, as you read those, think about Cavernoma journeys. So, maybe you're here on someone's behalf. Think about their Cavernoma journey. Think about the losses they experience. Think about the changes in familiar pattern they experience. Up till my diagnosis, I was fit and healthy, very active young dad, very sporty. So things have really changed. I lost a lot in the last 25 years. But one thing I learned very importantly about grief is that though it hurts, it is normal and it is natural. It is a normal response. So there is nothing wrong with grieving. Grieving is a natural process that anybody goes through when they experience loss. You'll probably think about this in other areas of your life. Honestly, I think everyone in life is a griever. And so everybody really needs to understand that, and therefore it's okay to grieve and that they can recover. We'll talk a bit more recovery later, but I want you to really realize there is nothing wrong with you. And grief, the emotions can vary majorly from completely happy to completely sad to being depressed to anxiety to all sorts. So I want you to realize that the many emotions that you can feel and I feel when I think about and when I experience the losses that I do are perfectly natural, and there is nothing wrong with me for feeling that way. This has amazing implications. A bit more definition, the feeling of reaching out to someone or something that's always been there for you. Maybe your health, maybe your balance, maybe your eyesight, maybe your speech, but only this time you find out that it's no longer there for you. That is a grief event, and you'll experience grief as a result of that. And then as well, reaching out to something that's never been there. And I think about people that have had Cavernoma for a very young age and see other people without Cavernoma experiencing health, and that they are thinking, well, I wish I could be that way, and coming up against their symptoms and realizing that when they need to be healthy, it's not there for them. And sometimes life is that way, and that's when we feel grief. So I want to talk about recovery from grief, but I want to talk about what the causes of grief. Grief begins at very early ages. You can almost think it beginning at birth, when a baby in the womb of their mother is in a warm space, a warm, dark, safe space where food is untapped 24 hours a day, and then they're born into a bright light, probably, and then they get hungry, and then they have to cry for their food, and then they're cold. There's a lot of loss goes on. Now, I'm like saying, not telling you that a baby will experience that, but I will say that grief begins at a very young age. Maybe losing a pet as a child, maybe experiencing your parents' divorce as a child. And the thing about grief is that when we have, imagine we have a backpack, and when we're born, that backpack is empty, and so walking around living is fine. Emotionally, there's no weight. But then as grief hits us, the more and more losses hit us, we begin picking up those rocks, and those rocks go into our backpack because we're not taught to deal with them. So we carry grief with us. Each of those loss events are put into our backpack and become heavier and heavier. And then the more we grow, the more weight we carry. And then we don't ever take any time to empty the backpack, usually because we're not taught how to deal with them. And then one day the backpack becomes so heavy, it weighs us down, can cause all sorts of um, dysfunction in our lives, emotional issues in our life. And just imagine the rocks that we carry and that we've collected due to our Cavernoma stories. Think about when you were diagnosed and how you felt. Think about how your family felt, those around you, how they felt. Think about the losses that they're experiencing, and then think about all the losses that you've had due to your cavernoma since then. That's why I think tonight is very important for me to help you to understand that what you feel is normal and natural and probably extremely exacerbated as a result of the cavernoma, but that there is recovery, there is a way to get better. So let's just think about our childhood and as we grow and the things that cause loss in our lives. We lose our blankie as a baby. We cry out for a bottle of warm milk and we don't get it. Maybe one of our pets died and maybe we move house. Remember, grief is defined by a change in circumstance too. So you might not like the move that you moved a house, you may lose a lot of your friends, you may join in school. There's all sorts of losses. Of course, there's abuse, divorce, the deaths, graduations, a complete change in circumstances, job losses, financial losses, illnesses, floods, incarceration, foster care, separation. Think about the losses the children experience that are not taught how to deal with the grief that comes. Experiencing violence, any violence really is a loss. Estrangement, pregnancy, miscarriage, loss of addiction itself, separation from friends, siblings, and loss of things. And then the bigger things that are happening in our world, the environmental changes and the way the environment is affecting different parts of the world, major disasters around the world. They are grief events and they cause us grief. And what we feel is normal and natural, but sometimes very, very difficult to deal with. But recovery is possible. But think about things like intangible losses that you can't really um, pinpoint or see, loss of safety. When you think about violence, if you're in an environment as a child, safety, loss of security, maybe a caregiver in your life, you lose trust and then loss of trust, loss of respect. We all need to be respected. That's part of one of our core needs. And we're not respected, it's a loss, and we have a grief response to that loss. Loss of faith, loss of hopes and dreams and expectations, things that will never happen. And when I think about Cavernoma, think about the things that I will never do because of what I now have. That you have grief, you have responses of grief to those very real, they may be tangible, but they're very real losses that you'll experience by thinking about what could have happened, what dreams are dashed, what hope you had, and just losing normality. Of course, what is normality? But certainly the world would see us as not normal with our condition. And so, how do we deal with that? How do we deal with that loss of normality? Um, so, let's think about why grief is so misunderstood. Well, I think it's because we're never really taught how to deal with grief, what it is. Why do we feel the way we do when we feel bad? What do we do with that? Well, we never taught. So we live in confusion. We grow up in confusion. We do feel bad. And people tell us things like in these myths, they tell us don't feel bad. Well, that's not much good to anyone who is feeling bad. If you're feeling bad and you're told not to feel bad, the tendency you'll do is hide and not tell anyone how you feel. Because the message behind not being told to feel bad is that you shouldn't feel bad. Well, of course, you do feel bad from time to time. One of the other things that we're told is that when bad things happen, you can just go out there and replace the loss. Maybe you lose a romantic relationship, your first love, maybe, and you've had that grief once, and somebody says there's plenty more fish in the sea. Well, that may be true. There may be more girls, boys out there, but you know what? That's not going to help the emotions that you're feeling right now. And then, even if you do replace the loss, that rock that we talked about is still in your backpack, is still weighing you down, and affects the way you think about your future love life. Children are often told that if they're going to cry, then go and do so on their own. If you're going to cry, go upstairs. And so children learn very early on that they should grieve alone. But actually, that's actually the absolute opposite to what you should do when you're grieving. You should find a trusted, safe friend that you can talk to. Grieving alone is a terrible thing to tell someone when they're feeling bad. But sometimes in an environment where other people I experiencing the same loss as you. And we're told to be strong often, to be strong for them. And that sounds good. Yeah, okay, I'll be strong so that they can cope. But you still feel, you still have the pain of grief. You still suffer from the loss. And being told to be strong doesn't help you deal with it. I have many, many clients who are told to be strong in a younger years and are still suffering with grief now in their older years because they never dealt with it properly. Very popular one is if you don't feel good, just keep busy. Just be busy. Be busy at work. Be busy at home. Do things that keep you busy. You can think about OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and how maybe that was a response to grief. Um, it doesn't work keeping busy because nobody can keep busy 24 hours a day all through their lives. There come times when things are quiet, when the feelings come. The busyness is not there to keep the feelings away. So keeping busy is a myth, doesn't help. And then probably the most famous myth is that when you feel bad, somebody says, don't worry, it'll just take time. Um, if you have a puncture on your car, and then you think it's okay, it'll just take time. It'll get better. So you put up a chair next to your car and you sit there and you just wait for the puncture to magically repair and you'll end up sitting there for a very, very long time. The only thing you can do to get that repair fixed, that puncture fixed is to take some very positive and important steps called the RAC or the AA to come and fix your puncture. And if you don't, you'll remain with a puncture. Just take time is a very dangerous myth to tell people grieving. There are many grievers who are still waiting in life. They're still suffering because they're still waiting. They still believe that myth, that misinformation, and maybe there's more that you can think of, more that you've been told regarding, especially your Cavernoma story, whether people have told you how you should deal with the way you feel. These things don't help. We're coming on to the positive steps that bring recovery. Um, None of those are positive steps that bring recovery. So they're really good to know, really good to think, well, that's not true. So I'm going to go elsewhere. And then why is grief so misunderstood? Well, not being taught how to deal with the feelings of grief means that we have an emotional energy within us that's generated by grief. And it's generated in order for us to go and get help, to go and talk, to go and find a safe person that we can talk to and name our feelings with. But because we don't understand that that's the way to deal with grief, we have all this emotional energy and we don't know what to do with it. And that's when we can get into things that aren't helpful to us, either emotionally or in our lives. So emotional energy can often result in what we call STIRBs, which we're going to call short-term energy relieving behaviors. So you can think of things that people turn to try and numb the pain. And so just a few of these things like eating too much food, that's very popular. I love chocolate. We just had Easter, a good excuse to eat chocolate, but sometimes I need to ask myself, am I enjoying it or am I just doing it to know how I feel? An obvious one is alcohol, smoking, or vaping, or drugs, either street drugs or that is illegal drugs or drugs over the counter. There's other things like exercising all the time, go to the gym every single night, persuading yourself that it's a good thing to do because you're getting fit. Well, you know what? It is good because you are getting fit, but it's not dealing with your feelings of grief. um, Oversleeping, sleep too much, um, cutting or self-harm. Obviously, the other things there, picking like nose picking or finger picking or twitching, anger, fits of rage, gambling. And I just wonder what Taurus steps are. I'm a 60-year-old man and I don't know all the things that we can get into nowadays. But I do wonder what tomorrow's short-term energy relieving behaviors are. And I show you this list just so that you know some of these things can be done in order to numb the pain that you're feeling. They don't bring you the freedom that you deserve. So again, why is grief so misunderstood? Well, we don't feel good. Especially maybe if we're participating in STERBs, we're not feeling good about ourselves. We're not feeling good because of the grief that we carry. But then we are not encouraged to express how we feel. We see in the world that that feeling sadness is not really encouraged. So we learn that the expression is, I'm fine. And that's all. If anyone asks you how they feel, they'll probably love it when you say, I'm fine, because that means they don't need to listen to you and hear how you feel. You need to find someone who is willing to hear how you feel. You have feelings inside you, feelings that hurt you, and when they're not expressed, they hurt you. And we're taught things from a very early age. Imagine a young child, maybe Ava, at the bottom there. She's come home from nursery and she's had an argument in the playground with another child in the playground, and she's sad about the argument she had. Maybe she was called a name, and she says to her mum or her grandma that she's had, and she's crying. And her grandma says, "How are you? What's wrong?" And she tells her, "Well, this happened in my playground, and this happened, and I feel really sad." And grandma gives her some sweets or some chocolate or something that she thinks will take her mind off the pain that Ava's feeling rather than sitting down and talking to her. And Ava learns, okay, when I'm sad, I'll eat something. And that, even though you become an adult, may not be healthy. It's a learned response to what you do. Um, so we're told often to suck it up, don't cry. Don't be a crybaby. Have you ever heard the phrase, don't cry, or I'll give you something to cry about? I mean, you could often think about that being an abusive statement. It's actually a very damaging statement because not only are you feeling bad, but someone wants to make you feel worse. I've heard that said to me several times. And then finally, grieving alone. We are told if you're going to cry, go to your room. And there are many, many more things that we're told when we're grieving, when we are experiencing losses and we're sad. Children are like sponges, and all they have is the lived experience of the life they have in their home. And if the parents or the caregivers in their home um, keep them this way, then they learn from us because there's no one else to learn from. So they learn bad things. And a child could grow up carrying grief and not processing that grief. And then by the teenage years, they've lost the zeal, the brightness that they had when they were younger. I can certainly relate to that experience of being a later teen and having a sadness that came as a result of the losses and the grief that I felt when I was younger, and not those feelings not being adequately dealt with. So they become our belief system, and as with any belief system, it's comfortable. We enjoy it. We find comfort even though they can be wrong. We want things to remain the same, so we hold on to those beliefs. And if those beliefs are those myths, then we end up believing those myths, and we live with grief, and our backpack becomes heavier and heavier. Even though these things don't work, we even resist anyone that tells us or tries to tell us to deal with them differently. It's too uncomfortable for us to deal with it. That's why I'm so excited about finding the grief recovery method. So with Cavernoma, people that live with Cavernoma, how as each of our own, think about our own Cavernoma stories, think about the losses. I've told you my story earlier, only so that you could relate to the losses that I experienced through my story. When I was diagnosed, I was terrified. When I was operated on, but then it came back. I had no idea. I thought I was going to get better, but it didn't. It just got worse and worse and worse. And then I could no longer work. I thought I'd do it forever. I thought I'd play sport forever. I lost a lot of things. And so, how do you feel? I was never taught how to deal with losses. So when my Cavernoma came, I didn't have the tools. So let's think about our losses very quickly. So I lost my brother Nick due to symptoms relating to his Cavernoma. I had my initial symptoms, my diagnosis, my hospital visits where the professionals will tell you what's wrong with you, but won't ask you how you feel. Surgery with very confident surgeons who fail and gamma that might or might not work. And then the third way we deal with carbon is to wait and see. There are so many losses included in waiting and seeing. And then my ongoing symptoms, small bleeds I might have that I experience nowadays, the seizures that I've had, the body changes, no longer walking, my facial palsy, my speech, my eyesight, all these are losses. My poor balance, and then being misunderstood is a huge issue. Trying to help someone understand, um, trying to get overboard to help someone understand, and thinking, why do I need to do this um, when you're the one that's suffering? So think about your losses. Think about the rocks in your backpack. So the grief recovery method, it works. It's proven to work as an evidence-based program. It's been used for over 40 years. It's used all over the world. The book that I showed you is translated in 20 plus languages. Um, and within grief recovery, we allow grievers to make meaning by telling their story, giving voice to undelivered communication, saying things they need to say that they haven't had the opportunity to say. And then the grief recovery method is a program. It's not so much counselling, it's more an action program. And a specialist like me will help someone go through the actions that leads to their recovery. It's an amazing process that a griever goes through. And personally, I've been through the method 4 times myself, once with my health situation, um, each time bringing me amazing relief. So, ways to release the grief that we carry to come to a close. Um, Recovery comes from learning to make a series of small positive changes in attitudes and then changes in behaviors follow. We feel different, we act different when we learn to make this series of small positive changes. Um, Recovery means getting better. Doesn't mean being healed. Some people often say to me, I want to be the way I was. But that's not going to happen because what you have is now part of you. You're actually going to be a stronger version of who you were because of your Cavernoma. You may feel weaker right now with the weight of your backpack, but you will become stronger. You will um, undergo a process of becoming a stronger person with an amazing experience. Recovery comes sooner with appropriate support. Find someone safe. Find a grief recovery method specialist. You'll find my details in a future slide. And so I ask you, what support systems do you have? Do you have somewhere to go where you can give name, where you can talk about how you're feeling? It's so important, and remaining unable to speak about it remains, in many ways, in a prison cell. You can't get out, and you need to find someone of safety to speak to. Um, Ways to lead the grief we carry is to validate, understand that grief from trauma or any loss is normal. Validate and acknowledge it and don't feel bad about it. It's totally fine. Avoid the misstatements. If you told someone empathize with them. It's very often that you can't tell how someone feels. Say so. Tell them that you can't imagine how they feel, and it allows them to tell you. Identify and name the loss. I don't know a griever who doesn't want to tell you what they lost. Help them name the feelings or go and find someone, talk to, and name how you feel. The feelings tell you the story. They want you to hear their story. You need to find someone with empathy. If you're helping someone, what we do in grief recovery is we take the position of the heart with ears. You imagine a heart with ears, a heart hasn't got a mouth. So we sit and we listen, we allow someone to talk, and it may be the first time you've talked about how you feel about carrying the grief or loss that comes as a result of your Cavernoma. Um, and they may need to talk about the stirs that they feel, that they experience, the stirs that they participate in. And that will bring them great relief. Um, I want to just say to the men, there may be somebody here that's on behalf of the man. I was told recently that there are many wives that speak the CAUK because their men have Cavernoma and aren't willing or able to speak to someone. Let me encourage you that they can speak to me. I've experienced what they experienced. I will completely empathize with what they say and how they feel. Um, if you're here on behalf of a man, I'm so glad you're here because now you know. Now you know how you can help them. And also you know where to point them. So what does recovery look like? I'm rushing now just to the last slides. It looks like great relief initially. It's like a weight lift off. It literally is. You're taking rocks out of your backpack, and each time you do, you'll get lighter and lighter. I know I can suffer a lot with being angry because of what I have. When you recover, recovery looks like feeling content and having great contentment despite your circumstances. It allows you to be empathic. When you're carrying so much grief, you're so busy processing the grief, and you're unable to see the needs of others. When you recover, you can see and you can empathize with the grief in others. And self-awareness, learn about yourself, an amazing thing to achieve. And then understand that recovery is a process. It's a process that you go through. If you think about loss, your losses will not stop. They carry on. They are part of life. And so recovery is a process, something you'll go through. Learning the tools of grief recovery will help you deal with those losses as you go through your life. And so just to let you know about the way I operate, I operate either one-to-one, either online or in person. The grief recovery method is extremely effective online as well as in person. I see people either way. We also do a group program, up to 8 people in a room or online. So that's how the grief recovery method works too. We also help carers to identify grief within children within their care. And it teaches children, teaches carers to help children deal with loss and have the tools to deal with loss throughout their life. And then also pet loss, just to let you know that pet loss to someone who loves their pet, if they lose their pet, it's as damaging, it's as painful as any loss that you can experience. So pet loss too. Grief Recovery Handbook. So there, just to let you know, there's some resources just at the top there, the Grief Recovery Method. So there's the website address. There is my email, so ben.brady@character-violence.co.uk. That's me. And I'm very, very happy to respond to an email from you to give you any help you need. So please, please be in touch. And then the CAUK resources on the Cavernoma.org website. There's the community chat, which I often go to and find very helpful. to talk to people who can relate to my situation. There's the helpline, there's therapy offered on the CUK, and there's the cover buddy system as well. I'm a buddy. I have people I talk to, the same people regularly, so that I can help them as they are processing what they're going through with Cavernoma. So we've come to an end of my presentation. Thank you so much for listening to me. I shall stop sharing and hand over to Helen. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Ben, for sharing your personal story to help inform that understanding. And I'm just going to share some reflections. But before I do, if you have any questions for Ben, please do put them into the Q&A. If you can't find that, you're welcome to use the chat. I mean, things that just really struck me, Ben, was that myths and those misinformation of being told to be strong. I think so many of us have heard that, and it's going to be okay. And I remember as a child always being given candy. It's
Yeah.
that kind of, oh, this will make it feel better. And I loved that analogy of the backpack that we're all carrying around and the rocks we're carrying. And I think you made such an important point about, have we looked in that backpack? Have we looked in there? Do we know what those rocks are? And that point you're making there may be many people on today's webinar who haven't necessarily seen some of these things in the light of loss or even thought to name them as losses. And I think that sort of looking at those rocks, defining what they are, is really shining that light on them, is that first step. I thought that was really powerful. And I thought also that point about it starts with changing attitudes before you can change behaviors. And I think that was very important as well to talk about those unhealthy coping mechanisms. So often people say, "Oh, have a drink," or "Do
Yeah.
this. This is going to help." But what you're saying there is actually what's going to help is hard, but it's identifying, naming, and then having someone such as a grief recovery specialist to take you through that in a methodical but very thoughtful and empathetic framework. So thank you so much. Um, so I'm conscious grief isn't an easy topic to talk about, and asking a question might not be easy. So I haven't got any questions just yet, but Ben, I'm going to ask you a question. If someone today, it might have brought up a whole load of feelings and they're wondering what to do with it, what would your advice be for after this webinar? What could be a practical thing someone could do this evening if maybe they're feeling a little bit sort of almost triggered by hearing some of this?
Of course, yeah. The first thing you must understand is that you can become really unhappy and not realize how unhappy you are. And that actually those emotions can really affect us. And so I'd encourage you to, or if you feel this way, to find a safe person, find a friend that you can talk to. Of course, you could email me, no problem, and I'll be very happy to talk to you and to hear your story. And just telling someone, it begins that process of relief. And then you realize how unhappy you've been. You've been dealing with things in the wrong way with the myths and the misinformation that we so often hear. And by doing that, we can keep those rocks in our backpack and therefore keep unhappy. And it's amazing when you talk how relieved you feel. It's the beginning of the process of recovery. Only the beginning, but it brings great relief. So I encourage you, find someone to talk to, call me for free. If you don't feel comfortable calling me, be in touch with the helpline on CAUK, the Cavernoma helpline. Just talking really is the first stage for you. And understanding that it's just normal and it's natural the way you feel.
Absolutely. And we've had a question in the chat, Ben. So someone's just saying, if I want to look for someone local to me who's a grief recovery expert, how would they go about doing that? Is there like a main website for people who specialize in this? What's the options?
Well, as a grief recovery specialist, every specialist will work online, so they could be anywhere in the world. If you'd rather see someone face to face, you can go on the Cavernoma .com, sorry, the griefrecoverymethod.com website, and on there you put in your postcode, and you will find the nearest person to you, and you can put the amount of miles away from you. So if you're in the UK and you put within 1,000 miles, you'll get me, but I'm in Scotland and you may be in London. So if you narrow down your search, you'll find someone locally to you. They will have it. So the griefrecoverymethod.com website.
Oh, thank you. And we'll pop that in a chat in a second. Somebody just saying having someone to talk to that isn't family is so important. And I think that's so true when we talk to family or sometimes even friends, we want to hold their feelings whilst we're holding our own, and it can be hard to fully express. And then I've got somebody who's sharing a bit of their experiences and got a question, and they say, "Thank you, Ben. I really heard you. I think by hearing you, I feel that I need to learn to accept my diagnosis, which will help, question mark, help me understand that I need to grieve some parts of my life that won't be the same. Grief historically has only happened for this person when someone has died. So grieving the Cavernoma feels with acceptance like it's selfish. As I'm still loved and safe, I feel like grief might feel like defeat." Ben, could you tell us a little bit about that? Is that something that people commonly feel? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and just going back to your last comment, when a family member you can't talk to, it's because the thing is they're grieving too. They're looking at you and they've lost something in you. My wife didn't marry me as I am now. She married me as a healthy young man. So she's grieving too. She's had to do with loss. Sorry, I can't know what the question. Sorry, Ellie, could you just remind me your question?
Course I can. So the person was talking about how grief to them historically has been something they've associated with someone dying, and they're feeling like maybe it's almost selfish to grieve the Cavernoma because they still feel loved and safe, and they feel like grieving might almost be like defeat.
Okay, well, feeling loved and safe, you are so lucky. You're in a really great position, but you will still have feelings of grief because of the loss that you're experiencing. And just remember that they're normal and they're natural. And so, if someone you know doesn't want to hear you and tells you that you're being selfish, or even if you tell yourself you're being selfish, you need to find someone that understands. Find someone that realizes that grief is normal and that grief is natural, and that it's a completely valid response to the loss that you're feeling. Um, but feeling loved and feeling safe, you're so lucky. Just enjoy that and revel in it. But don't ignore your bad feelings the way you feel. Please express that they'll keep you trapped if you don't.
I think that's so important to hear that. And I think often we think, oh, people are worse off than me. It's, as this person was saying, oh, it's selfish of me to almost indulge in these feelings. And I think what I'm really hearing from you, Ben, is no, these are valid, and we can be in a safe, loving relationship or space with family and still be grieving the losses that come with the Cavernoma. And something on the helpline, we often have people with asymptomatic Cavernoma who are grieving, and that's okay too, because they're worried about that uncertainty. Um, so thank you, Ben. And the next comment that's come in, this person says, talking to someone that is a not family member is such a good idea. To get past the denial of symptoms and challenges for me took time. And their
Mm.
question is, how long does the course take? Is it many weeks? And is acceptance hard?
Acceptance is hard if the person you're talking to doesn't allow you to talk. So we talked about being a big heart with ears. So you come to a grief recovery method specialist, you will have time to speak, and not only that, you will be validated the way you feel. So it's only hard to accept to accept your condition if the person you're talking to isn't empathic, isn't really listening. So find someone that will listen to you in the grief recovery method. So I do one-to-one online or in person. It's a 7 week program. So within 7 weeks, you will achieve recovery. Which and when someone walks away after 7 weeks, they walk away smiling. They walk away with an unbelievable feeling. And what you gain within those 7 weeks is tools to go away with and use for your own losses in the future. So one-to-one is a 7 week program. A group program, if you've got a group together, that's an 8 week program because of the logistics of running a group. But yeah, so it's a defined time, which is one of the reasons I really like the method because it's so accessible to those that want to come. So yeah, within 7 weeks you'll achieve recovery. It's life changing.
And I think, Ben, the lovely thing here is you're saying this from your experiences as someone with Cavernoma who's gone through this program and not only gone through it, you found that so helpful. You went on to then become someone who trains in it. Um, and I think that's lovely for our members to know that this has helped. I also think, Ben, as a man, we know at the charity, most of the people coming to us are women and there can be additional challenges as a man. So I think for you as a man sitting here expressing this really candidly is so important. And for the, particularly for those men on the chat here or women who are supporting men and go back and go, they're going to be saying to them, watch the webinar. You need to
Yeah.
watch the webinar. I think that's really, really important.
So men were not expected to talk, and I came to I was diagnosed and already was already carrying a lot of grief anyway. So the Cavernoma just weighed me down, and I got so unhappy that I just needed to talk, needed a solution. I couldn't deal with the unhappiness. I had small children, so I couldn't remain unhappy and closed. I needed to talk so that I could be the best dad or the best husband that I could be, and I'm so glad I did.
Mm. And so, just as a reminder in the chat, my colleague Battle shared the griefrecoverymethod.com website. And if you want to find somebody local to meet in person, go there. But Ben has also shared his contact details, so you can contact Ben directly. If you didn't get a chance to do a screenshot of those, or you're not able to copy paste it from the chat, email our helpline. So just go on the Cavernoma Alliance UK website, go to the contact us page, and then you can email our helpline and then we'll pass those details on. So, Ben, we're coming to the end of our webinar tonight. I think there've been some really thought-provoking questions raised. I always learn from these webinars. I've learned from this one as well. That analogy of the backpack I'm going to take away, and I love that idea of the heart with ears. Um, just a final word from you before we finish. Is there anything you'd like to, a note you'd like to leave us on tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just as somebody living with Cavernoma, I understand the losses that we experience, and I also understand that there aren't many people out there that can relate. So take the opportunity. If someone in your life is living with Cavernoma, if you yourself live with Cavernoma, take the opportunity to achieve healing emotionally because you're being held back and it'll change your life really. So I encourage you to make the most of it. It's a passion of mine to help you to be your best self.
Do you know, Ben, I really feel that, and that's so generous of you. And something I continually feel with the community, I mean, we have over 50 volunteers at CAUK, is often the people who've been through the hardest times give back the most. And I think that's so inspiring. And I've really seen that tonight. And it's very generous of you to share your contact details. So we've come to the end of tonight's webinar. Just a reminder, it has been recorded. If you want to watch it back tomorrow, just click on the same link that you used to join today. Within 1 to 2 months, that will be on YouTube. And if you haven't had a chance to write down any of the links that we've talked about, email the helpline, go on the Cavernoma Alliance UK website, and we'll send those to you. Ben, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for speaking to our members tonight. I know they've valued it.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you for your support. Thank you, Batul, whatever she is. And thank you, CAUK, for just giving me a chance to speak tonight. It's really been very encouraging. Thank you.
Good night, everybody. Take care. Bye bye.